I fear the day when minds once born to question will kneel before comfort, when the courage to think will be chained by the demand to agree. For it is not the noise of ignorance that destroys a society, but the quiet surrender of reason. My friends, we are witnessing a slow and silent funeral, the burial of reason beneath the weight of emotion. We have come to a time when truth is no longer measured by its substance, but by how it makes us feel. The question is no longer, is it right, but rather, does it please me? We are surrounded by a culture that demands feelings first and understanding later, if ever. And so we trade the light of reason for the warmth of comfort, and in that exchange, we lose the very thing that keeps a society awake. There was once a time when truth was pursued, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it challenged our beliefs. But now, truth is shaped and twisted to fit the fragile hearts of those who fear offense. We have made emotion our compass and called it progress, forgetting that feelings, though powerful, were never meant to lead. They were meant to follow wisdom. When outrage becomes the loudest voice in the room, reason becomes the first casualty, and when reason dies, justice soon follows. We see it everywhere, in our news, in our schools, in our conversations. People no longer seek to understand, they seek to affirm. We surround ourselves with those who echo our opinions, applaud our anger, and protect us from doubt. We are not building communities of thinkers. We are building chambers of agreement, where emotion rules like a tyrant, and reason is exiled as a traitor. And so the mind becomes weak, not because it lacks intelligence, but because it has surrendered its courage to feel before it dares to think. My friends, when emotion becomes our master, manipulation becomes our reality. The world will pull on our hearts until we forget to use our heads. The loudest voices will move us. The most dramatic stories will guide us, and truth, steady, quiet, and patient, will be left unheard. The powerful will no longer need to convince us with logic. They will only need to move us with feeling. They will give us narratives instead of facts, outrage instead of understanding, and we will follow not because we are forced, but because it feels right. But reason, though silent, still calls out. It calls us to think before we react, to question before we agree, and to seek truth, even when it shakes the ground beneath us. We must remember that emotion without reason is fire without direction. It burns bright, but it consumes everything in its path. It is not wrong to feel deeply, but it is dangerous to feel blindly. The time has come to rise again, to reclaim the sacred balance between heart and mind. For only when emotion and reason walk hand in hand can we see clearly, judge rightly, and live freely. Let us not be moved only by what stirs our hearts, but by what awakens our minds. My friends, there is a quiet force spreading through our world, a force not of chains or prisons but of pressure, persuasion, and silent conformity. It whispers to us that peace lies in agreement, that safety is found in sameness, and that to question is to disrupt. We live in a time when obedience wears the mask of unity, and conformity hides behind the banner of progress. The world tells us, think as we think, speak as we speak, believe as we believe, or be cast aside. And so little by little we trade our independence of thought for the comfort of belonging. The tragedy, my friends, is that this obedience is not enforced by tyrants with whips, but by neighbors with smiles, by peers, by friends, by the very society that claims to value freedom. We no longer burn books. We simply shame those who read the wrong ones. We no longer silence dissent with violence. We silence it with ridicule, with exclusion, with the slow suffocation of social disapproval. The mind becomes enslaved, not by force, but by fear, the fear of standing alone. And so people bow not because they believe, but because they are afraid to be seen standing when everyone else has knelt. This conformity trap has built invisible walls around our minds. We begin to think only within the limits of what is acceptable, speak only within the bounds of what is approved. We mistake compliance for civility and obedience for intelligence. But let us remember, agreement without understanding is not harmony, it is submission. A society that punishes questioning will soon forget how to think, and a generation raised to obey will one day forget how to be free. There was a time when disagreement was the engine of progress. The greatest discoveries, the boldest revolutions, the deepest truths, they all began with someone who dared to stand apart. But now, to question is to risk isolation. To speak is to risk erasure. The fear of rejection has become more powerful than the love of truth. And so we settle for shallow peace over deep understanding, for the illusion of unity over the struggle for wisdom. We are told that conformity keeps us together, but it does not. True unity is not the silence of many minds, but the harmony of many voices. A society that cannot bear dissent is not united. It is restrained, and the longer we mistake obedience for order, the more we will drift toward a world where thinking differently becomes an act of defiance and silence becomes the price of survival. But we must not yield to that world. We must dare to disagree, not in anger but in courage. We must remember that truth does not fear scrutiny, and wisdom does not shrink from debate. The progress of humanity has always depended on those who stood firm when the world demanded they kneel. So let us stand, not in rebellion, but in reason, for only those who refuse to conform can truly keep freedom alive. My friends, there was once a sacred place where young minds were taught not what to think, but how to think. A place where curiosity was not a crime, and questions were not seen as threats. That place was our education system, the foundation of progress, the cradle of wisdom. But now, I fear that foundation is cracking, for education, once the key to freedom, is slowly being reshaped into a tool of obedience. The purpose of learning is no longer to discover truth, but to repeat it. The goal is no longer enlightenment, but alignment. We have replaced inquiry with indoctrination. We tell our children what to believe before they learn why to believe. We fill their minds with answers, but deny them the courage to ask questions. We measure their intelligence, not by their insight, but by their compliance. And so, generation after generation, we raise young people who can recite information, but cannot challenge ideas, who know how to pass tests, but not how to test truth. This transformation is subtle, but its consequences are immense. When a classroom becomes an echo chamber, the mind becomes a mirror, reflecting only what it is shown, never what it imagines. True education must awaken the mind, not numb it. It must ignite the flame of curiosity, not smother it under the weight of conformity. But we have become too comfortable teaching obedience in the name of order, and silence in the name of respect. We are raising thinkers who fear thought itself, afraid that to question authority is to betray it. My friends, this is not the education that builds free people. It is the conditioning that sustains control. When students are taught to memorize instead of to reason, to agree instead of to explore, we are not cultivating citizens, we are manufacturing followers. A mind that is taught to obey will one day obey even when it knows it is wrong. And that, my friends, is how societies lose their strength. Not through conquest from without, but through conformity from within. We must return to a vision of education that values truth over ideology, wisdom over rhetoric, courage over comfort. Our schools must become sanctuaries of thought, not factories of sameness. Let the classroom once again be a battlefield of ideas, where disagreement is not punished, but welcomed as the first step toward understanding. Let teachers inspire minds, not mold them. Let students challenge what they hear, not just memorize what they're told. For the measure of a strong society is not how well its people can repeat what they are taught, but how bravely they can question what they are told. If we wish to keep freedom alive, we must first keep thought alive, in the hearts of our children, in the halls of our schools, and in the conscience of our nation. For when education ceases to free the mind, it begins to bind the soul. My friends, we have entered a new era, an age not of enlightenment, but of distraction. Technology, once our servant, has quietly become our master. It promised connection, yet it has left us isolated. It offered us information, yet it has robbed us of understanding. We hold the entire world in our hands, but we no longer hold our own thoughts. Our devices hum with the noise of countless voices, yet the voice of reason grows faint beneath the static. We scroll, we click, we share, but we no longer stop to think. We are flooded with opinions, but starved for truth. Algorithms have replaced curiosity, convenience has replaced contemplation, and the saddest part, my friends, is that we have mistaken access for awareness. We believe that because we see everything, we understand something, but knowledge without reflection is nothing more than noise disguised as wisdom. Technology has not chained our bodies, but it has quietly captured our minds. Every image, every post, every notification is designed to keep us reacting, not reflecting, to keep us consuming, not questioning. The architects of this digital world understand something many of us have forgotten. A distracted mind is an obedient mind, for when a person cannot sit in silence with their own thoughts, they become easy to lead, easy to sway, and easy to control. We live in a time when truth must compete with entertainment. The loudest story wins, not the truest one. Outrage spreads faster than understanding, and lies travel the world before reason has taken its first step. In this storm of information, we begin to lose the anchor of discernment. We no longer ask, is it real? We only ask, does it agree with me? And so, we are led, not by leaders, but by algorithms that feed us the comfort of our own reflection. My friends, the greatest danger is not that machines will outthink us, but that we will stop thinking altogether. When every answer can be found with a swipe, we forget the power of the question. When every opinion is shaped by what we see online, we forget how to form our own. We are teaching ourselves to depend on the screen to tell us what is true, what is right, what is good, and in doing so, we are surrendering the very essence of freedom, the ability to think for ourselves. But there is still hope. Technology itself is not the enemy. The absence of thought is. We can reclaim the mind by choosing awareness over addiction, reflection over reaction, and truth over convenience. Let us not be ruled by the rhythm of machines, but guided by the strength of reason. For the true danger is not that technology is thinking for us. It is that we have forgotten how to think without it. My friends, the death of reason is not an event. It is a slow surrender. It happens every time we choose comfort over courage, emotion over truth, obedience over thought. But tonight, let us remember, no society can remain free when its people stop thinking freely. The world may ask us to be silent, to conform, to obey, but the light of reason has never bowed to darkness. So let us rise, not with anger, but with clarity. Let us think boldly, speak truthfully, and question fearlessly. For the strength of a nation does not lie in its wealth or its weapons. It lies in the minds of its people, awake and unafraid. And if we must stand alone to keep that flame alive, then let us stand, for a single voice of reason is still more powerful than 1,000 echoes of obedience.